This podcast is brought to you by Reynolds & Reynolds, the industry leader in automotive technology. Learn how Spark AI, Reynolds' unified AI data layer, can help you unlock your full potential by visiting rey.com/spark-AI. That's rey.com/spark-AI.
Hey, it's Jake Neer, Daily Drive executive producer here in Detroit. On today's bonus episode, we'll hear more about the growing standoff between the trade group titans representing automakers and retailers over state franchise laws. But first, Automotive News Canada's Greg Layson recently spoke with Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association President Flavio Volpe on the Automotive News Canada podcast. We'll start today's episode with a couple of highlights from that conversation about the idea of starting an all-Canadian automaker amid U.S. tariffs, as well as an unaired question about why the North American industry has not shut down production as predicted with new tariffs from the White House. Here's a piece of that conversation.
Flavio, there hasn't been a truly successful Canadian car company in about a century. So is this just a romantic notion brought on by the current Buy Canadian movement? Or is there a real demand here? I'm just wondering what you're trying to answer or what you're trying to do.
Can we all get together in like our own Manhattan Project and build one so that we build into the Canadian automotive story some insurance, a company based in Windsor or Toronto or Montreal or anywhere that has a status as a center for R&D, for innovation, a leaning post for Canadian dreams, something that we hand to the next generation of Canadian auto people that is an expression of all of those advantages that we have in an electrified space and a connected autonomous space over all those countries that have beat us to the punch, like Mexico or Vietnam or Turkey or Iran. Shouldn't we think differently and do better and do it thoughtfully? We should at least try. And if I can bemoan one thing about the current culture that we have here in this country around this space is that we come up with a lot of experts with a lot of reasons on why this will fail, and we don't even try. And that's not good enough for me or for the hundreds of people that have reached out since we started talking about how do you organize to try.
So let me ask you this. Should this be a national project, government funded, or should it be something private, or is there a way to make it a combination of both? How long does this take, and can it even work? Does it have to be one or the other, or does a partnership work? I just wonder how you envision, quote unquote, ownership.
It doesn't have to be. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. I think to take a thoughtful approach, you have to sit there and say, do you have any sacred cows? And if one of the things that is important to Canadians, both the people that would be involved in a project like this, as well as Canadians at large, is to say this is not a nationally owned automaker, a state-owned automaker like the Chinese. Then you don't go down that path. You don't study that as an option. There are no car companies anywhere in the world, in any country, in any segment whatsoever, on any product that don't rely on a partnership with government. Those partnerships are tax treatment. They are help in R&D, in raw materials, or in some cases with countries that are big allies of ours who protect their home markets by using non-tariff barriers to boost domestically made product, or 3 levels of government in different countries that bias their procurement to locally made product, to wider relationships with state-funded academia to help move along the product. I think there's no purity in this. People who want to drive that for a Canadian model are best to debate whether we should do this at all And I think that's an important debate. There are competing interests in this country, regionally and in different industries. It's not hard to see how some Canadians who are facing other challenges would have no interest in this. And I think that's valid. And I think we need to be able to make a case to Canadians if we're going to make this a Team Canada effort. But I think there is a role for government. I think anybody who thinks that Tesla and BYD are independent companies, that think that the Detroit Three have never had a restructuring financed by government or co-investment from government, that the Japanese don't protect their home market, that the Koreans don't bias towards nationally owned conglomerates, that Saxony doesn't own 20% of Volkswagen, I'm very happy to give them all a lesson 101 in how the global auto industry works.
You, among others, such as Linda Hassenfratz, warned in the spring that tariffs would shut down the auto industry. I think Linda said within 10 days, 14 days. Yeah. What has kept assembly lines running, and has the industry proved more adaptable than we had all expected?
The only reason we have not had a shutdown is that people like me and Linda have been able to convince the Americans to not tariff parts. The first threat was to tariff all automotive goods with a general tariff. And we said the cost of vehicles is going to skyrocket, and that's going to be a problem. And that the cost of parts that have to be absorbed immediately by automakers who import them and has to be passed on through production in a just-in-time production scope is going to shut down the industry. The Americans listened. They threatened a parts tariff, and they didn't follow through on it. Not because they like us, but because they understand that math is binary. If they reinstitute the threat or follow through on it, I'll go back to my same prediction. And I think so will Linda, and so will all the others who said that, including Jim Farley, who runs a small outfit called Ford Motor Company.
You can hear Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association President Flavio Volpe's full conversation with our own Greg Layson on the latest episode of the Automotive News Canada podcast. That's available now wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up, our own Rudy Shork talks with Automotive News tech and innovation reporter Molly Boigon about the growing tensions between two massive trade groups representing automakers and dealers, respectively. That's next on this bonus episode of Daily Drive.
As your business gets more complex, it feels like productivity can't go any higher. You need a way to move forward to a future where you don't have to start every interaction from scratch. You don't have to search for actionable information. You don't have to manually pull data to make decisions. You need a future where the complex is made simple and you can do more with less. How do you get there? It all starts with a spark. Unlock your full potential with the next generation of automotive dealership technology that actually does some of the heavy lifting for you by texting leads, transcribing calls, making data-backed recommendations, and boosting your overall productivity so that you can spend your time and energy on what truly matters: selling cars and growing your business. Spark AI, Reynolds' unified AI data layer, can empower your dealership to operate more efficiently and effectively than ever before, so you can do more, sell more, and make more. To learn how Spark AI can help your dealership reach its full potential, visit rayrey.com/spark-AI today. That's REYREY.com/spark-AI to learn more.
There's a growing standoff in the auto industry, not between rivals, but between automakers and their own dealer networks. At the heart of it are franchise laws, the state-level rules that determine how vehicles get sold, how warranty work is handled, and who really holds the power in the sales chain. Now the Justice Department is reviewing those laws, and it's setting off alarms across the country. Automakers say they're being blocked from modernizing. Dealers say their livelihoods are under attack. And the tension is heating up fast.
The United States, through states, has established different policies that are meant to protect dealerships, which are very powerful economic engines in the economy and in their individual areas. There are two state franchise laws that are at issue in this dispute. One has to do with certain protections for dealerships that allow them to challenge the establishment of new dealerships in a radius near their facilities, and the other has to do with the process of warranty reimbursement, which is complicated, but I'll just leave it there for now. The Justice Department in March announced that it was forming a task force that would look into policies that it determined to be anti-competitive. This whole fracas started when the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which represents the manufacturers, wrote to the Justice Department and identified several state franchise laws or categories of laws that it believed should be reviewed. NADA, which represents the dealers, saw that as an affront to the franchise system because those laws protect the dealers. The auto industry has undergone some changes that have sort of recast the traditional manufacturer-dealer relationship. So first of all, the automakers and dealers have been under a lot of pressure to sell electric vehicles, which have just created some new challenges for that dynamic. Also, new entrants to the industry like Tesla have tried the direct-to-consumer sales model, which has raised some questions about to what extent traditional automakers would want to sort of reclaim some control of their process. And both of those things have sort of created conditions for some tension between the dealers and the manufacturers. Although historically, NADA and the Alliance have worked very closely together, probably most recently on pushing back against the state of California's ability to write stricter vehicle regulations. So this is definitely a change, and also one that has had some sort of contextual background that may have push this feud forward. The dealer community has reacted very strongly to the Alliance's letter. There's a sense that the Alliance is sort of inviting the government to attack the franchise system that really not only benefits the dealers, but sort of keeps the dealer system alive. And, if you read the piece, you'll see that there's some comment from dealers that I have in there where people view this as a direct affront to their businesses, to their relationships with the automakers, and NADA said as such in its response to the Alliance. The review that's being sought is really about the issue of warranty reimbursement and about this ability of dealers to challenge the establishment of new dealerships in their vicinity. I do think that Tesla sort of highlighted, or even in some cases sort of created, some of these tensions because they've been so successful with the direct-to-consumer sales model, and that has just sort of highlighted the ways in which automakers may want to regain control over some of their sales. However, the Alliance said very clearly and in no uncertain terms that it does support the franchise system and its dealers. So it's sort of going to be interesting to see whether this was just a misread of a sort of innocuous request on the part of the Alliance, or whether it means something greater about the future of the sales models for the automakers and the dealers. Obviously, the Alliance contends that some of these policies are anti-competitive and therefore negatively impact consumers. So, for example, their contention would be if dealers were not allowed the opportunity to challenge the installation of a new dealership in a particular area, more dealerships could open and compete with each other and therefore drive down prices. But if you ask NADA and the dealers, they say, well, we are most entrenched in our communities and we know best how to offer our customers the best deal, and we're also in our communities and members of our communities and therefore are incentivized more than the manufacturer to offer a fair price and gain a lifelong customer. So again, it really depends on who you ask, and it depends also if the Department of Justice decides to really seriously review these policies and make the changes.
You can read Molly's full report along with more coverage and context on the DOJ's franchise law review at autonews.com.
Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Daily Drive. I'm Jake Neer. We'll be back on Monday with a brand new full episode of the show.